Okay, so now I'll move on to the third question. How do you identify and leverage the strengths of an individual's sales team members? Like if you have to maximize the results, how would you identify their strengths and make sure that you're utilizing their strength to the maximum?
That's actually a very interesting question because I don't have a straightforward answer to it, to be very honest.
Okay.
You have to, of course, there are a few things that you do, few steps. Like first thing that I do as soon as I take over a team or I've hired someone new is I do this personality test, first of all.
Okay.
And I share my results with the team member and the team member shares their results with me.
That's very interesting.
So that sort of gives me an idea as to what kind of personality they are, and they get an idea about me. And it makes it easier to have a day in, day out working relationship that pace, because when they're having a bad moment, you need it the most when they're having a bad moment. Yeah. Because you know how to manage them. And they know that about you as well. So it goes both ways. This is something which now, so this is the first thing. Second is, it takes a while to sort of understand what are the strengths of this person and the weaknesses. What you don't want to do is sort of like spoon feed your team members on any and everything, right? So it's also very important to understand their strengths and weaknesses so that then you're only working with them on areas where they are weak or they may struggle, and let them take full control of everything else. So my main goal is to sort of keep on learning about my team members as well as much as possible, to sort of understand that out of the traits that I'm looking for, this is the weak area, and this is where I'll actually focus my most energy with this individual.
Sure.
And that takes a little while, and that's person to person, that it takes a little while to sort of get to that particular point where you can have that very understanding very clearly, and then you work on that. Second is that you again assign tasks based on that based on the strengths of an individual, you only assign them those sort of accounts, especially in SaaS sales. Like if I know that the person on the other side, like one could be sorry, let me take a step back. One could be the industry that they're coming from in terms of experience. So you assign them those sort of accounts because that's their strength, right? Second layer could also be that what kind of point of contact are you dealing with from the customer side? Like, to give you an example, if there's a South Indian customer, right, from Kerala, if I have someone who can speak the language, it's so much easier. Just a simple example. And that may not always be true, but just as an example that, you know how it is in India, right? I mean, every state has a language. Now, if you're dealing with a customer from Kerala, there's a certain language which is spoken over there, Malayali. And if the person knows that very well, has the roots over there, and I have the privilege of having them on my team, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, straight away, it's a very easy fit. But that's also like a very, very particular case. Second thing could be that like you have a POC who is a little more extrovert. Mm. So you don't assign an introvert salesperson to them. And yes, I mean, newsflash, even introvert people can sell. They do it very well. But like sometimes you have someone who can really, really hold a great conversation or a great relationship with someone like that. So, and so on and so forth. You can keep finding such examples. So you assign them accounts based on their strength, right? The third thing I would say is you have to recognize and reward efforts. continuously. It just can't be about the salary, the variable. Yeah, all of that is like set in stone. Every other company does that. But you gotta give those recognitions on even non-sales related activities. Like I've had so many times where one colleague from who's handling totally different set of accounts has sort of helped another colleague in their own sales account, and just because they had a relationship here and the other colleague had a relationship in this account, and this person just made the conversations much more easier because they went really, like, I mean, they had a relationship from earlier business that they had done together. So it's that simple, that although the sales guy too over here, let me just call for people who are just listening on the podcast, that the sales guy too over here, whose account, who does not have this account as his own in their own list, like had a relationship with the account POC and just helped the other team member. Correct. And of course, that person won't get any recognition in terms of the order book over here, in terms of closing the sales. But like as a team, like you sort of promote that sort of atmosphere by recognizing the efforts of this individual, because that played a very important part in sort of getting the deal. So you have to continuously keep on doing that, and that really helps keep the team together as well. Of course, there has to be a competitive spirit. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in sales, you have to have competition, but at the same time, it's a healthy competition that you help each other as well. So that's another one. Encourage collaboration as much as possible. I would say that's my final point, that you have to make sure, like I said, I mean, like in the previous answer, when I said that it takes a village to win a deal, you have to encourage collaboration from within your sales team, your inside sales team, your pre-sales team, your product team, your solutions team. Everyone comes together to have that perfect pitch and solution for the customer. And that collaboration can only happen when you have that team spirit, and you sort of promote that culture, that it's a team which goes and wins the deal, not an individual. So that again goes a very long way, and you're sort of able to sort of create that camaraderie between individuals from different departments who can come together. Because once you close a deal together as a team, the next opportunity which comes on, and when you see this person again, the same person that you had earlier worked with, working with you on this one, your confidence already has gone up, that yeah, I mean, I have cracked a deal with this particular person, and this person is a great help when it comes to dealing with a particular opportunity, and you have so much more fun working together. So yeah, I mean, I would say that as another point. Yeah,
I think it's very important, because I know we talk about teamwork a lot. We talk about the camaraderie, we talk about collaboration. These are things that we talk about in almost every team scenario, or the strengths, right? So we're always looking for somebody who would be a team player and all of that. However, I think that with sales, which can be more cutthroat, it's very hardcore competition. And the example that you just mentioned, right? That if it's a sales team, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I got the example wrong. That if, let's say, you and I are on a team, and there's a particular client, right? Now I might have a great relationship with that particular client. Doesn't do anything for me directly, but I might introduce them to another team member of mine and say, you know what, this might be helpful for you. So if I introduced you, right, and I didn't get any direct recognition for it, but the result is that I catalyze someone else's growth. I was in one way or the other able to support the other person in the process. And essentially, when you put that kind of a teamwork out, you expect that it becomes a culture, it becomes an ecosystem, it becomes a thing within the team where it's an accepted norm, and if anything, it's an encouraged norm, and it's something which is desired. So I love that. And I also think that you're very right when it comes to realizing strengths of the person by getting to know them continuously. So what happens is that, and this has happened because I have interviewed people, I have been interviewed, and I'm not aware of certain strengths when I'm entering into it, right? So when my bosses are getting to know me while I'm working with them, they'll immediately say, oh, I've just realized this is your strength, why don't you do this, right? Or they'll manage that as and when. So I think people see strengths and weaknesses as a very set in stone at that particular point of time thing. Either you have it or you don't have it. It's not as black and white. I think it's very fluid. You're growing along the process while you're understanding that. So quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And one thing that you mentioned, because I wanted to sort of pick your brain on it, that how do you tackle with if there is a certain weakness that a person has? Let's not even call it weakness. Let's say an area of opportunity, right? And you know that that weakness could be detrimental to, let's say, closing a deal or to some sort of a hardcore sales quality. How do you sort of encourage or motivate them to acquire that quality? Like if they do, if
So
you do,
again, it goes back to upskilling. That's one.
okay,
And the second thing is that you definitely help the member on the job by getting into those aspects yourself, because as a team leader, that's your job to sort of help out in that particular situation. Like, I'm going to use a cricket analogy over here. When Mahendra Singh Dhoni used to be behind the stumps,
yeah,
and there's a bowler who can bowl well, but maybe not so well during death overs.
yeah,
But he, for some reason, was the only bowler left who had to bowl the last over. So Dhoni used to always sort of guide the person from behind the stumps where to pitch the ball. And as and when he used to do that, these bowlers became experts at pitching the ball at the exact right point and became expert at death bowling. So it's as simple as that you have to train, upskill, and that can happen during your courses and this and that and everything. The other thing is that there's an on-the-job training required where you as a leader help the individual, and at the same time, like when you have a slight bit of confidence that this individual can now take the lead, you sort of shadow the person for some meetings, but let them take the lead. And eventually, when you're convinced that, yeah, this person can now handle this on their own, you sort of take your hands off the wheel. So it's as simple as that. So, I mean, there's no rocket science, I feel, in this, unless, like, I mean, I learn another way, but this is what I feel is the one that works the best.
yeah. Right. And motivation, like I mentioned earlier, you also mentioned that keeping the morale high and keeping your sales team members motivated is quite important, right? Because sometimes the fall can be very hard for people involved in sales, right?
Yeah.
You might feel it more than you might feel in any other job profile. So your highs are your real highs and your lows can be really low, like rock bottom, right? So what strategies, and I know this because of my personal interaction with you, that I would call you as someone who's self-motivated, right? So you're able to figure things out which motivate you from within, and you're able to get on with it. While everybody might not be that, right? Everybody might not have that kind of a quality. They might need external factors to feel motivated. So I guess my last question to you is, have you figured out any strategies that you found are the most effective in keeping your team motivated and engaged? Is there something special that you do, or is there a way? Because I might be wrong in my analysis that you're self-motivated. Maybe there are things or there are times when you're not that motivated, right? So as a leader, very sadly, you can't afford to have a day where you get into the call with not motivated. That's a responsibility that you have. You can't get into a call being like, I just don't feel like doing this today, and whatever, because you have to motivate your team members. So what strategies have you found effective to keep yourself also motivated and also as a consequence, motivate your team members and keep them engaged, even when they're hitting their lows?
This is the most difficult part of the entire sales process. Sorry, not sales process, of a salesperson's life. To keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself in a positive frame of mind. There are so many points that I've already said. Recognize the contribution, reward, celebrate success, this, that. Like, I can talk about so many things. But since you've asked this more from my particular context, something that I have been sort of voicing a lot with my team members lately is that there are 365 days in a year. And out of those 365, let's just say that you have 10 amazing days. When you close the sale, you get a super kick. And that is just phenomenal. Like, you're the happiest that day because you've closed a transaction. Apart from those 10 days, how do you keep yourself motivated? It's a big question. So one is, I encourage this a lot, that as a leader, you should know what are the personal goals that the team member has. That's one. Because you always keep reminding them of that whenever needed. That's one. I feel that has worked really well.
Okay.
So that they don't get derailed. Second is that I always say this, that you have to win the day, not win the year. You'll win the year eventually. Yeah. If you're winning the day, that means that you're doing everything that you were supposed to do to win the contract, achieve your deals, achieve your numbers. More often than not, it's pretty straightforward that way. And it could be down to the level that every day's tasks includes that I have to get up at this time. I have to make sure that I go for a 5-kilometer run, or I have to make sure that today I go to the gym. I have to make sure that I eat clean so that it keeps me productive.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that I go to bed at the right time. I have to make sure that these 8 tasks, which I have to do for my 5 different conversations that I'm having this quarter, I'm able to connect with this person, I'm able to have the right solution identified. Does that, like, you can divide your daily task sheet, right? And you just keep checking them out. What that does is that by the end of the day, it gives you such a sense of calm and like thrill that, you know what, you're doing everything that's required of you. And it sends you into a positive mind frame that because you're doing this, eventually the deal will happen. And positive mindset really matters because you're when you're actually jotting down these tasks, you're also thinking every day that, you know what, I have to be ahead of the game. Yeah. What do I do as an extra step to make sure that tomorrow I have a plan B, tomorrow I have a plan C? And because you're doing this on a daily basis, you're so focused that you're able to make sure that you don't just achieve, you overachieve. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you fail, that's okay. But that's what I said, that when you're doing all of this, you have that sense of satisfaction that, see, you did everything. Sometimes because of some factors, some external factors, or maybe you missed something. That's okay. That's a learning. You take that and then you go again. But when you're planning it day wise, and when you're winning the day, it keeps you in a very positive frame of mind. So what you've got to make sure is that instead of having 10 awesome days, you have 365 awesome days. And you just like making sure that every task that comes your way, you're hitting it out of the park. So that, I would say, is one of the main things that I've been trying to drill down into my team members, that you have to win the day. Every day you have to win the day. And this is something that you have to put into practice. It's not something that will come immediately.
Won't happen overnight.
And exactly. And make it easy on yourself by, first of all, putting those tasks which you know are easy for you and you will definitely do them. Then put the difficult ones, or whichever way it works for you. Maybe put the difficult ones first, and then put the easy ones, which are just like quick, done, and you're done with the day. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I feel that really keeps me motivated. And I've seen folks who perform really well. Most of them also try and do this, that they are very, very day focused or week focused, that in this week I have to achieve this. And yeah, that really helps.
It's a very, I'm very glad that you're mentioning this. Oftentimes, when we look at really successful people, we feel like that can't be achieved because it's too far, right? And it's because we take away from the fact that they also at some point of time started small. So we sort of have this problem that, not a problem, maybe it's just a human trait, that we sometimes negate the journey and we look at someone's end. But we're looking at someone's end getting inspired that today, for example, I'll do something and tomorrow I'm going to achieve 100% of what I had set out to do, right? Which will never happen. You'll have to start small. And like you said, you put your day together. And I was reading this somewhere, how you having discipline in your day, even if you don't meet the end goal, just the act of you achieving small things that you have on your list. It can be, I have to wake up at 7. It can be, I need to drink 8 glasses of water. It can be as mundane as that. And then people will say just achieving that small goal will also impact the way you work. It will impact the way that you live. Because you're training your brain to realize that there are smaller things that I need to do first in order to get to something bigger. This has been my realization, that we're always so fixated with seeing if we'll meet the end, always so fixated with, I did not achieve that 100%. And we negate the beautiful aspect of the journey. Like, I don't know how you feel about it, but while it's a great kick to have closed a deal, it's so much of anticipation, working hard, all of it in the process, which makes that goal that exciting for a reason. If it was very easily achievable, it might not give you the same amount of cake, it might not give you the same amount of motivation, but the journey makes the end very beautiful, the end goal very beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But leaders like yourself are talking about this to their team members so that they're not under this impression that, oh, I woke up one morning and if I have all the traits, let's say, that Kesha has today, tomorrow I'm going to be exactly that person, right? It won't happen. It'll always be smaller steps that you'll take. So, and another thing about the beautiful journey is that it gives you your uniqueness. I'm sure you're not exactly like your leader was. So in your process of doing little things, you figured your, ways of working. So I'm
No,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. And like, I don't know if I'm quoting this right, but a lot of people who've become very successful do say this, right? Who are also like sort of trolled by saying that he or she was an overnight success, and they say that it took 10 years of hard work for me to be an overnight success. So it's as simple as that. And see, I mean, I may have given you an example about what I do as an additional thing.
Yeah.
And you still do the basics, which is provide more incentives, provide more rewards, recognitions, like I said, but you have to find your own way of motivating. Maybe for some, it's something else which motivates them, because at the end of the day, it's a way you have to find that right point or the right spark to sort of push an individual towards success.
Yeah.
And that's what managers have to do, right? I mean, you have to, it's not just an operational thing where you just like approve reimbursements and like sort of approve leaves. it's way more than that. You're at this role, managers have to, like, I mean, it's a very harsh truth that you are as successful as your team. You may be doing 1,000 things right, but if your team is not successful, you're nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think as a psychologist, I can also tell you that this can be another 1 hour conversation altogether, that everybody gets motivated very differently. We have our personality differences. Everybody's, and so many psychometric tests will tell you, for somebody, it's recognition. For somebody,
Yeah.
it's adulation. For somebody, it's power, right? So even what motivates each individual will be very different. But over the years of research, the one quality that we find across successful people is that they've got their routine in place, they've got their discipline in place. And that's why even when Jordan Peterson talks, he says, just wake up in the morning and just clean your room, put your room in an order, and just make your bed. Even if you start with that, your entire life will start to fall in place. So I think that one thing that you've just mentioned, I've heard that across from everybody and anybody that I know who has been successful. So yeah, this has been such a really good conversation. I'm very glad.
No, actually, like while you were mentioning Jordan Peterson, like before you conclude, I wanted to also mention, because while you were mentioning that, it suddenly reminded me that recently I was interviewing someone who literally, when I asked him to sort of walk me through his profile, in the first 5 minutes, in the first minute, he said that, see, you have already read my profile, you've already seen my LinkedIn, and let me just also put something out there which will just put this literature, or like the basics part of it out of the way.
Yeah.
And he just sort of took me through his yearly achievements and facts. Like he didn't say that I did 100% or 102%. He showed me the numbers.
Yeah.
And when he did that in 2 to 3 minutes, he showed me for the last 1 or 2 years. And then he straight away jumped onto and then said that, see, I've been, and he showed me like all sort of recognitions that he got from his manager, his CEO, his this, that, everyone. And then he straight away jumped onto and said that, see, this is all too boring because I know that they don't mean it. I'm just a number in this organization. I can be replaced tomorrow, although I've been doing well. I want to work with, and I'm finding a team where I can not just be successful, but build something which is meaningful. And then we just went into a totally different conversation where I was trying to sort of understand from him what motivates him, what his goals are, and he was like sharing about his life, his living situation, which wasn't bad. It was amazing, but like, because he was doing very well.
Yeah.
But you meet, this is just one example of like so many different individuals that you interact with. Yeah. And like you rightly said, that sometimes like everyone's so different and their motivations of working are so different. Yeah. And you as a manager have to understand that. Yeah.
I think the next conversation we'll definitely have is how to navigate through people who have different kinds of motivation. I think that would be a very interesting conversation to have. But we can go on, and we've already spoken a lot today. So I'm going to conclude this podcast by thanking you. Thank you so much for taking out the time. It's been very difficult to chase you down and get time. So thank you so much for taking out the time. It's been really fun. And yeah, this was a fun conversation. I didn't think I could enjoy talking about sales as much. So thank you for making it that easy and likable. And I hope we have, a lot more conversations going forward. Any parting
thank you.
Comments or compliments you'd like to give? I mean, I'm all for it.
No, absolutely. Yes, this was incredibly like it was really nice, and all the best for your podcast. And for the listeners, yes, she had to like, this paints me in a bad light that she had to literally block my calendar to have a conversation. And no, that's not how we always have conversations, that we block each other's calendars. But yeah, I mean, that's how this time it was. But yeah, thank you so much, Stuti, for giving me this opportunity to share. And I hope for the listeners, it was something that they could take some points from, and hopefully it'll work for them. And yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.